Welcome to The Switch, not another podcast. The Switch is a collaboration between Baseload Capital and DNB, aiming to accelerate the green transition. We want our podcast to be a central hub for knowledge exchange within the fields of renewables and green transition. Hosted by Kristina Hagström-Ilevska and produced by Emil and Jacob.
Welcome back to a new episode of The Switch, not another podcast. Here in the studio today with me are Emil and Jacob.
Hello.
And behind us that are helping us and making sure that we actually do this podcast is DNB and Baseload Capital.
There are.
It's a pleasure every week we come back here.
It is.
Agreed.
Guys, we are actually doing progress. Today, we're having the first guest that actually approached us and said, I want to be on the podcast.
Yeah, it's a really interesting guest today.
Yeah.
She has, she's quite forward in what needs to be done, I think. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. Jacob, do you have anything you're curious about in this episode?
Yes, it's a lot, because she's like in the midst of the startup scene, and her company, they are guided by a beautiful mission. They want to make a better world, but the startup scene, I mean, it's characterized by such competition. So I want to know, how do they attract investors, and how do they attract the best talents among employees? And also, like, what inspired her to do this journey, because she had quite a good position before.
You guys are giving me a hard job. There are so many questions I need to have in my head now. So I'm not going to let you talk anymore. Without further ado, it's time to present our guest of the day.
She is the CEO and co-founder of SustainLab, a sustainability management platform. She has been featured on Aktuell Hållbarhet's 33 under 33, a list of top young sustainability talents. And SustainLab was featured on BestStartup.eu's list of top sustainability companies in Sweden. Let's give a warm Switch welcome to the changemaker determined to speed up sustainability transition, Maria Svantemark.
Welcome, Maria, to The Switch, not another podcast.
Thanks.
I want to dive directly in, because when you and I spoke a little bit earlier, you told me that you started SustainLab actually out of frustration, that there weren't enough knowledge and culture and also technology out there to support what we needed to do. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so, I mean, you're absolutely right. I'm an easily frustrated person, and I was super frustrating.
That's a good trait, actually, just so you know.
Yeah. Thanks. I think some people wouldn't agree with you, but I also think it's a good fuel.
Yeah.
And I was really frustrated with the slow pace in the sustainability transition as a starting point. And then all of these blockers, like even with people who wanted to work with sustainability and for good change, there's so many blockers in the way. As you said, lack of knowledge, organizational or cultural blockers, but also lack of data and technological support.
What do you mean when you say blockers? Like things that hurdles that you can jump over, or what do you mean by blockers?
Yeah, so things that in an unproportionate way stopped us from doing the things we wanted to do. So, we know as a society we need to decarbonize. We know that we need to be more circular. We know that we need to halt biodiversity loss. So why isn't it happening fast enough? And I think that these three, at least when we look from a company perspective about culture, knowledge, and data, or insights, is really some of those hurdles that are really, really big, and we need to break them down fast.
And I also remember you reading up on you, where you said, like, I didn't want to stop with only one company. I needed to affect more. Was that also part of the frustration? Because you were doing a big difference at Findus, where you were as a Nordic sustainability manager.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked that job. I learned a lot, and I really went into that with an ambition to change, which I think most people working with sustainability really want to see that change happening. And then when I felt, I learned a lot, and I want to I can't work with one company at a time. It's too slow. We need to have more scalable and transformative change. And that's when technology is, of course, a great tool. So
then you started SustainLab with your partner, Kamal.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what is SustainLab?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really kind of the marriage between mine and Kamal's knowledges. So I had the sustainability knowledge and all the frustrations I had. And Kamal has a PhD in computer science and worked building software systems for more than 10 years. So when we started to talk about what's prohibiting change, and we came to this data problem, Kamal said, well, that we can solve with the help of data and technology. So that's when we founded SustainLab. And what it is a SaaS sustainability management platform that automates all sustainability data handling for companies.
Okay, stop there, because there are so many people listening. So it's a SaaS.
Yeah.
So that means, say again, it's a sustainability
management software.
Okay, so it's a software actually that you buy.
Yeah, or you have a license to use.
You have a license to use. Okay,
Yeah.
tell us more.
So you have a license to use it, and what we do in it, or what our customers do, is that they collect all their sustainability data. So from collecting it, and the thing with sustainability data, it's so diverse because the sustainability problem is so big and diverse. So some data could be what is our energy usage. Other types of data could be what's the animal welfare like in our supply chain. Other data could be what's the gender diversity on different seniority levels in our companies. So it's very, very different types of data, and we help them to automate the collection. Then we process it, analyze it, and visualize it for them.
Okay.
And
How do you
Can I break in
Yeah,
and
sure.
ask you a question? Because I'm thinking about all this data that you are collecting. How do you get the data? How do the companies actually know these data points, and how do they have them? Do you help them with that as well, or is it just the automation when they already have the data?
Yeah, so I mean, that's really the kind of second layer of our company. So the way we automate this data handling, that's the baseline or the basis of our company. And on top of that, we build recommendations for sustainability best practice. We work with machine learning models on the back end and process large amounts of data to be able to help them to understand exactly that. Okay, I'm this company of this size, I'm this mature in my sustainability work. What's my next step? What's the data I should collect? Where can I find it? How are ways I can process it? When I look at the results and we can see that you're not reaching your targets, here are some actions you could take.
What could an actual target be?
So everything from being carbon neutral to
Carbon negative.
carbon negative, absolutely. So I mean, carbon, all of our customers, of course, have a share of carbon in what they track. But it's also things like reducing food waste, shifting portfolios to be more sustainable, ensuring we have not only gender balanced company, but also looking at ethnicity or age, or looking in our supply chain. What are the corruption risks and how do we reduce them?
It's quite interesting because when we think about technology and sustainability change, we think about carbon.
Yeah.
Carbonization and those kind of things, but you're actually also measuring, you said, like gender equality and those kind of things as well.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you guys actually picked up on that it is the culture in a company that actually affects the results of the sustainability.
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, and I mean, carbon has enormous focus right now, which it should, considering the carbon or global warming crisis we're in. But there are so many other sustainability challenges. And if we only focus on carbon, we really risk of missing out or actually not optimizing the whole system because we're too focused on one thing. And as you said as well, I mean, there is loads and loads of research and reports saying that, more women, for example, in higher position in companies also lead to more sustainable companies. Of course, because you get more perspectives in, you get new knowledge in.
Yeah.
So we need to look at this holistically and not only focus on optimizing one area of sustainability.
I remember you were telling me, I think that it's a good example to tell about Findus meatballs versus vegetarian. Can you tell us that example of how you actually worked to create that data?
Yeah, so I mean, at Findus, or at any food company, the food product in itself has the largest environmental impact. So it's really packaging is minor, transportation is minor. It's how did we raise this cow? How did we farm this carrot? Or how did we catch this fish? Mm-hmm. And we know that animal products are very much more environmentally intense than vegetarian products or plant-based products. So we had a target on shifting the portfolio to a more plant-based one, and including fish, so more vegetables, vegetarian products and fish, and less on the red meat side, because we know that's going to impact our sustainability targets the most, or sustainability impact. Mm.
So how did you do, and what did you come up with? Did you get the result you wanted?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is start tracking your data, really. Without that, you don't know. And start tracking it often, because one frustration I had in my previous job, which then led up to the creation of SustainLab, is that I was part of the management team, I was part of the Nordic board, and in all of these board and team meetings, management meetings, we would look at financial data and sales data in every monthly meeting, and we got it sent out more often than that. But sustainability data we looked at once yearly.
So that is really... Because you measure everything else on a weekly or monthly basis, and sustainability you measure on a yearly basis when you send out your really yearly report, correct?
Yeah. And I mean, this is not... I mean, Findus, we wanted to do good things. There were good people in that company. So it's not about that. It's just that data is so complex. So when I left Findus, I was thinking, so am I the problem here? Am I a crappy sustainability manager? And that's why I can't produce this decision material more often? But it turned out, I talked to 80 sustainability managers, and 90% said data is one of my top 3 pain points in my day-to-day work.
Wow, that is really interesting to hear.
Yeah. So,
Say that number again?
So 90% thinks that data is one of the top 3 pain points in the day-to-day work when you work with sustainability. Mm. And so this is not a problem. This is not Findus' problem. This was not my problem. This is a systemic problem.
Yeah.
And that's why we created SustainLab, to really solve this. Because if we can help sustainability managers or anyone interested in sustainability in a company, which should be everyone, if we can help them to have the insight into the data as often as any other business critical data, then we can really create more change.
Mm. You're great. Amazing. I just want to know, because this is actually a mind shift. And I mean, if you provide this kind of data, you actually provide a new conditions to the modern leadership. Mm. You're completely switching what we're looking at and how we're thinking and what we're prioritizing. Is the world ready for that?
I think we have to be ready. I mean, we should have been ready 30 years ago. Mm. So it's not about a question of not being ready or not. It's about allowing for this change to happen. Mm. And I think that has a lot, it has a lot to ask for leaders today, definitely not only in the sustainability sphere, but in the whole corporate world. Mm. We need to allow for experimentation, for new ways of thinking, for testing again to come to a better result, and doing this in a very fast way, because we need to get the results very fast.
And you and I actually align on that question, that we need to make sure that the leadership of today takes this seriously and actually gets educated in it.
Yeah.
How do you at SustainLab work with yourself to make sure that you are on top of what needs to come, because you're giving a lot of knowledge to everybody else? How do you make sure that you're in the forefront?
Yeah, I mean, super valid question. So one is this recommendation system that we're building, where we can process larger amount of data than we can as humans, which means that we can have more knowledge and more recommendations to give. So that's one thing, but we also track this very often ourselves. So we track all of our sustainability KPIs, actually all of our business KPIs, but they are all linked to impact every 3 weeks. So that's when we have our kind of management meetings, even though we're a very small company still. But we track, okay, so, and one of the things we track, for example, is how many hours did we learn about sustainability the last 3 weeks? And I think here's a really good example of why you need to test and test and test, because this particular KPI, we actually started tracking this year. So before, we didn't do it because we didn't really see the connection. We tracked other things like how many types of recommendations can we give to our customers? Because we know our main impact is through our customers in the platform. So how can we help them better? How much sustainability data do they track in the platform? How easy to use is the platform for them so that they can have insights often? And then when we review this, since we do it often, every 3 weeks, we saw that, wait a second, for us to be able to do all of this, we need to step up and be better again. Yeah. And that's when we started to measuring how much do we learn.
But that must also come out of that you are measuring often enough.
Yeah.
Because if you would have measured this once a year, you would be very reactive.
Yeah, I mean,
in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, then we would have started measuring this KPI in like 2026. So we would have lost 5 years or 4 years.
I think that this is actually like a big big topic to be discussed. I do believe that there are a lot of managers out there that need to read up on these kind of questions. I mean, this is one of the reasons why we do the switch, of course, as well. But I think that it's very important to start tracking and watching and testing all the right things.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Listen, it's quite interesting because you guys, you're 2 years old.
Yep.
Yeah, fairly new, and you're talked about as the hottest thing on the market of green tech, in a sense. How did you come to grow this way? I know that you just recently took on an investor.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
How do you plan to grow?
Fast and aggressively. Yeah, but I mean, yes, we just closed our investment round early 2022 with Smarket Invest as lead investors. And that money is really to accelerate this change. So Kamal is fantastic in building and have built our platform from scratch. But of course, we need more developers. We need more people programming. So that's kind of one focus area. And the other one is being able to help more companies, reaching out to them, ensuring that they know that we can help them and actually help them start tracking sustainability data more often.
So you're actually moving on now to the next, to making sure sales and marketing is functioning so more people get to know of you, or?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good. I hope that this podcast will help you as well, because you have something really good going on. So if you're watching or listening this, check them out, SustainLab, all right?
Yes,
cool.
Thanks.
Listen, I want to go in on a little bit more on a personal level.
All right.
Yeah. You know, we have 3 questions that we always ask our guests.
Now it's time for conscious questions.
What have you done for the climate this week? And the second one is, do you have any guilty pleasures? And the third one is, have you seen anything stupid regarding the climate this week? So tell me, which one do you want to answer?
I take the stupidity one.
Ooh, you're the first one to be able to answer this one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, good.
I was like, that one for sure.
Yeah, sure. Shoot.
No, but I think, I saw this post in social media about how a coffee company and a gas company work together now. So the coffee company had coffee that it couldn't sell because it was not a full batch, so it couldn't sell it. But they could sell it only then to this gas company, and they started selling this coffee through their gas stations. So that was coffee that should have gone to waste, but now it was sold and drunk
Which is
instead.
A good thing.
Super. For the coffee company.
Yeah.
Because this is the main thing what they're doing. They produce coffee. So great, they reduce their kind of food loss or coffee loss. But the gas station, I mean, their main business idea is still to sell fossil fuels. And part of this post was that, we're going to save 120 tons of carbon the first year with this initiative. And then I did some quick calculations and I realized that 120 tons of carbon is how much this company, the gas company, emits from what they sell in 28 minutes.
Ooh.
And then I felt...
Bullshit.
Good one. Okay, good one.
Yeah, and I think we need to start talking about this. What's big and what's small. Like, great for the coffee company, but I mean, Mr. Gas or Mrs. Gas Station person, like, don't do a full media thing about something that's super duper duper minor.
Yeah. Is that greenwashing, what you just saw?
Yes, for sure,
Yeah?
for sure. And I think that's redirecting focus. Like, if we focus on starting with these super tiny things, I mean, they should start with stop selling fossil fuels and doing that shift instead.
What would you like them to do instead? I mean, it's going to be a slow transition. The world can't today. We can't remove it completely. What would you like to see the gas companies do?
I mean, no, for sure. We're going to need fossil fuels, unfortunately, going forward as well for a hopefully limited time.
Very limited, I hope, yeah?
Yeah. But, I mean, first of all, stop doing crappy lobbying that kind of sets us or makes us stay in the current state. Yeah. And there's so much subsidies going into the fossil fuel industry. I mean, we should get rid of those. And if we take this seriously, if you're a company that's seriously say, I sell fossil fuel today, I will not do it 2030 or 2025 or whenever you're going to stop, you should help getting rid of those subsidies, because otherwise your competitors will still selling fossil fuels. So we really need to see the bigger picture.
They need to get SustainLab to make sure that they measure the right things. They can start moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Good. Thank you. That was a brave and very thoughtful opinion that you had. And I think that these are kind of these subjects conversations that need to be had, that we actually don't have as much. Okay, Maria, let's move further a little bit. I wanted to connect a little bit, because your company is actually a tech company in a sense. You do have a sustainable perspective, but how do you think that technology is an enabler for the switch we need to make?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it in your question, like technology is an enabler. I think sometimes, to me, the tech and the startup scene is quite absurd. It's, valuation that goes out of the roof. It's so much hype around some things and nothing about others that might be super cool and super impactful, but not so easy to explain. And there, technology becomes the thing, whereas I think we should see it as the enabler. So technology can help us with getting the data automated, so we get the insights we know, so we can actually act. So the technology in this case is about how do we get to the change faster. Technology can also help us with knowing what to do, getting us up to speed with the latest, not needing to spend hours on hours on that. And I think, again, that means that we know what to change faster. So, and then of course there's other type of technology that reduces carbon or removes carbon, for example, from the atmosphere and those type of things. But it's always, for me, it's always the impact and the outcome of the technology that's important, not the technology in itself.
I would like you to tell our listeners and viewers about the example with, you told me the other day, an example with I'm obviously I don't use it that much, but a vacuum cleaner, thank you. Obviously I don't use it enough at home, but you were telling me about like how this kind of data can actually like introduce new products.
Yeah. So I mean, if we start to look at the product or the service, actually, it could be either the product or the service full life cycle. Where's the impact the most? For some things, like food, which we talked about, it's in the production, it's the primary production, whereas for some types of kind of white goods, it's in usage. And if we then can start understanding the data from the usage perspective and start seeing, okay, so how often is this used? What is it we want to accomplish by using it? And looking at those patterns, we can come up with new innovations, new services, and so on. So in the example of the vacuum cleaner, I mean, if we want is a clean floor, why not make a robotic vacuum cleaner that is very silent, so you can use it at night? When you sleep, great for you, you wake up to a clean home, but also the energy usage in the grid is lower. So you actually use energy not at peak time, but at low time. So when we start thinking about the system in a bit more complex way, I must admit, it is not always straightforward thinking, but that's when we get to the really, really interesting shifts we can make, and that's going to influence product development and service development, and that's where we need to start.
And actually, I guess that's also where we get the tipping point, because when we get like products that actually consumers can buy that are good for the environment, then more and more people will unconsciously be a part of making the switch.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's way too complex to be a consumer today from a sustainability perspective. That's also why we founded a B2B company, because I think, I mean, consumers, yes, they have a responsibility. Consumers have a responsibility to heat their houses with renewable energy and electricity as well. They can make choices when they eat. They can make choices how they travel. But it's super hard on the detailed level to know what choices to make. That's why we need to make them on a systemic level. And it's very hard living sustainably today because our society is not built for it, and the norms doesn't support it either.
Interesting. So we need like a governmental shift here as well.
Yeah, I think businesses is one players, politics or governments is one players, and individuals and civil society is one player. And we're all influencing each other. And we're also, I mean, I'm an individual, but I'm also a voter affecting the political system. And I also work in a company. So starts connecting the dots.
Definitely. But at the same time, I know, listening to you, I get very inspired. You have both the solutions and the vision and the mission all set, but you are a fairly small company, yet in a startup phase. How, because we're going to need like tons and tons and tons of you, or that you grow like super huge very fast, the new Apple.
Yeah.
So what do you believe can make why do you believe that you can make a difference actually?
I think that's a very valid question. I think in one way, I might had a bigger impact in my previous job as a sustainability manager, but I also felt that impact was limited to a certain setting.
Yeah.
So I took a bet that I will have more impact by starting this type of company that has the potential to grow and scale. And we need to support of course, us, but every clean tech, green tech company to grow fast and to scale. And that's when we need to look at, again, complexity, but the financial system. How is it set up? Which companies do we invest in? Or get funding in other ways? So starting to think about growth differently as well. Like, how can we maximize impact of this company? Not only how can we maximize valuation for next round?
Very good. Good thought. Do you feel that the investor world understands these thoughts that you have?
No.
No?
Definitely not.
A good answer. Can I push it?
Yes.
Do you want to push it?
I want to.
Tell me, what do they need to understand? What do they need to shift in their mindset?
I think we really need to make this switch from, as said, like, don't only focus on the next valuation, but actually what's the impact the company is going to make. Start measuring the impact. When I started working with SustainLab, I had the zero bookkeeping experience, budgeting experience was very limited, and so on. Still not my favorite things to do today, but I need to know it.
Join you in that one,
yeah. I needed to learn and I needed to do it.
Yeah.
And I think we should look at impact the same. No, people will not be knowledgeable. They don't know how to do it. Maybe they don't love it at the start. They should, because it's so much fun, but not everyone will love it. But we should do that as well. That should be, as inherent in a company's, the things we have to do as budgeting, for example. And when investors start asking about that, how do you measure impact? Startups will start measuring it. And in this round, I talked to quite a few investors and also impact investing firms and so on. And I could sit an hour and talk to an investor. And by the end of the meeting, they still didn't ask me the question, how do we measure impact? And they were an impact investor and we were an impact startup. And I had to bring that up. And I think then we really need a mind switch.
Whoa, that's a bit mind-blowing, actually.
Yeah. And I think it happens a lot because the investor community also see that this is a growth space. But it needs to happen more and faster, and they need more knowledge. They need better people in the industry.
I think that's a shout out, guys and girls and women and men out there. We need to get more knowledgeable and start asking the right questions.
Yeah.
Because that's where the change is starting. Great. Amazing. Listen, I have a disruptive question for you. Are you ready for it?
Now it's time for the disruptive questions.
How do we get more people interested in the future of energy and tackling climate change?
I think the interest is starting to pick up, but I think we need more, as you also apparently think. I think with companies being real is a starting point. I mean, that's also how we see that the people who work in our company, they really appreciate that. We walk the talk. We really care about impact. We talk about, accelerate change is what we do. That we say that I say that every day, multiple times per day. Okay, but does this accelerate change? Does this accelerate change or not? So I think that the companies needs to be honest and really want to make this from top to bottom level. But then I also think we should look at what's needed. I mean, there's going to be great salespeople needed. If you work in sales and you're great at that, you don't need to, do a whole new education and be a sustainability professional. Go sell good things. Go work for a good company. And I think when we start to think about that, like then this shift can happen so much faster than everyone needs to re-educate themselves.
So basically just be what you already are, but switch the service or the product.
Yeah.
Because we're looking for traits within the sustainability. I think that you're very spot on here, because I think that many engineering companies out there that have really good like products and lineups, they don't have a good sales, they don't have a good marketing, so they don't grow. They are not growing. I have a good example from when I came into geothermal. When you Google geothermal, the only thing you see are big machines and pollution. But the pollution is actually not pollution, it's actually warm air. So it's steam. But when you look at all the pictures, the only thing you see is pollution. So you get scared and you turn it off and you go away. It's quite interesting how actually industries need to shift their mindset to make it more concrete and closer to heart, to be closer to vision and mission. How do you attract the new talents that you want?
Yeah, I mean, imagine if you had a really, really good creative marketing person at that company that you looked at, your opinion would probably have been different about that company or industry. And for us, how we attract people, I mean, first of all, with the impact first and the change we want to make first. I think that's our main thing. We also hear that both with people I interview and the people who work for us, that they are, ready to sacrifice quite a lot to help realize the vision we have. And then it's not that hard to attract.
So actually we need to be better at talking to the heart.
Yeah, and I think you can only do that if you mean it 100% truthfully yourself. And that people are going to get very allergic to companies that doing this halfway. That's, they say that we're super sustainable, but actually we're not. Or we really value everyone's possibility to succeed in this company, but our management team is only men that are 50 years old. That's not going to fly anymore.
I totally agree with you, and I think that if you look at the younger generation, they are it's not a quest, it's a demand.
Yeah,
definitely.
For sure.
Interesting, and I think that you're leading the way, definitely. So my heart goes out to you, and I really want to give you guys sunshine for what you're doing. It's something groundbreaking, and I really hope that more people start thinking about it. I think that what you said, like we need to start measuring it on a regular basis, not a yearly basis. So my sunshine goes to you.
Thank you.
But where does your sunshine go today?
Sunshine.
I would really, really like to send that sunshine to all the customers we work with, because they are change agents. They really want to change, and that is what's energizing. When we I was at a customer meeting right before this, and okay, but how can we make this better? How can we make it stronger? How can we push this a bit more? And I think working with those type of people in those types of companies, that's really a privilege. So I send it to my customers.
Well, I think that's a valid sunshine to give. Listen, Maria, I'm so happy that you were here on The Switch, not another podcast. I think your message is important to the world, and I and the team here wants to support you, definitely. So we look forward following up in about, let's say a year or something, when you are no longer a startup, you're a scale-up.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
Let's do that.
Okay, good. It's a deal.
It's a deal.
Good luck until then, and see you out there helping make the switch.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure. summarize today's guest, and everything she said is going to be difficult, but let me start with the obvious. Technology is an enabler, and we need to use the data and the technology to be able to measure more often. I mean, come on guys, you can't measure sustainability once a year. That's not going to benefit your acceleration to do the switch. Another thing that I think I will remember for the rest of my life is how she actually made the corporate bullshit button here shine very bright when she actually challenged the greenwashing and the way we're thinking. I do believe that there is a lesson here to for all of us to think about the full perspective. Yes, we do things, but don't make them shine too much. Make sure that you take care of your full agenda where you are. In the end, I think that she said it very good. Everything is connected. You are a voter, you are a worker, but you're also a consumer. Everything is connected to you, and if we want to make the change, the switch, we're going to need you to do it. So with that said, I want to thank you for listening in today. I want to say thank you if you have been watching, and if you liked it, make sure you subscribe. If you think it was really, really good, which I think you thought it was, then make sure someone else subscribes to it so we can continue to spread this message. Help us make the switch. Until next time, take care of yourself, and if you can, someone else. Bye!